All right, everybody, welcome. Collin, how you doing?
Doing good. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Looking forward to have you. My voice is still a little shot from my daughter's wedding this weekend, so I'm still recovering, but hopefully make it through here. So really excited to have Collin Mitchell with us today. He's the managing partner at Medium. We've got a great title topic, which is how outbound sales is broken and what works today. So certainly something that everybody could use. We're sponsored by Convertive, who's the sales and marketing tech stack consulting sponsor of Sales Community. Great company for sure. And for those that are members of Sales Community, thanks. For those that are not, Tucker will put up a link. You can do salescommunity.com/winterfree. So get a lot of great access to content, chats, podcasts, and things like this. And as always, Tucker, thanks for your help behind the scenes. So by way of introduction, Collin lives in the San Fran area in Danville. He's got 4 kids, 2, 5, 7, and 9. Saw some of your cool posts about your 9-year-old playing soccer. So really cool there. And interests besides work and family are running and swimming. So you can tell, obviously, by looking at him, he's nice and fit. So those two have done really well for you.
Yeah. I don't get to spend as much. I don't have a ton of free time with 4 kids, so I get it in when I can.
Enjoy it before you know it. They're out of the house. Trust me. So great times, special ages there for sure. So I think we first met through Jesse and Salescast that we have actually do the rebroadcast of this, but certainly was impressed with Collin in terms of kind of his thought process, go to market, a lot of great ideas that he has on Outbound. So look forward to getting into those and jumping into the questions here. So your path did not, after high school, did not start with college. So maybe tell us about that.
Yeah. So I was raised by a single mom, 4 boys, big age gap between me and my brothers, about 10 years. And so, my mom did the best she could to pay the bills, keep food on the table. And I was a little bit of a troubled young adult, so college wasn't necessarily in the cards for me. My first job was, lugging around furniture, sort of living check to check. And then when I got my first sales job, I knew that was sort of my way out to, living a better life. There you go.
And what was your first sales job?
It was your typical boiler room, sales environment, pounding the phones. We were selling products, IT products, mainly into school districts. And it was just a lot of phone calls every day. And I didn't have any fancy skills or experience or anything like that. It was just brute force, hard work. First one into the office every day. Last one to leave every day, coming in on the weekends to get my, list ready and send out proposals.
Awesome. So do you think you're, I'd say, part of the younger generation, certainly compared to my cohort? Do you think some of that's been lost these days?
Oh, definitely. And I think I think even with more and more people working remote or from home, you lose a lot of that, learning through osmosis of just being around in the sales, bullpen. There's tools and technology, obviously, but it's not the same. We even at Medium, had remote SDRs, previously, and found that having an office, people can ramp a lot faster, can learn things a lot quicker, and ultimately just drive, better productivity and results.
Yeah. So besides being in face-to-face, though, just the work ethic, right? I mean, I work with some teams and you see, some people are on it, but other ones, they just like check out for the weekend, which I don't get.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's an individual. Is it a generational thing? I don't know. Maybe. But I think that, there is a transition where, I'll just say it, maybe people are a little bit softer these days.
Yeah. But you also too, right? Company cultures too, right? I've got, friends you can't kind of lean in and coach and give feedback like they used to because, sorry, we're going to ruffle their feathers or we're going to upset them. I mean, it's almost a goofy world these days.
Yeah. And there's some people that perform better with that sort of, call it tough love sort of coaching, mentoring.
Yeah. Crazy. Anyway. So tell us more about Ledium.
Yeah. So we're a outsourced, SDR company. Been doing it for almost 10 years. Not many agencies that have lasted that long. Even less that have a good solid reputation. Most of the work is in B2B tech companies for the most part. Some other industries as well, but everything B2B. Run full multi-channel outbound and do that with a US-based SDR team.
Awesome. And what type of companies do you have as customers?
Anything from like early, startups to some of the largest tech companies that people would think that they have an in-house team. It's not always, do we outsource this function versus build it in-house? A lot of times we run in parallel, with an in-house team, whether that's helping them break into a new market, whether that's maybe launching a new product line or service line. There's a lot of situations where outsourcing makes a lot more sense.
Well, that's great. And can you mention any names of some of those larger tech companies?
So, I mean, in the past, there's some of the bigger ones that we've worked with. A lot of those logos are on the website. I'm actually fairly newer to the team, so I've only been there about 9 months. But I've known Kevin and Sergey, the co-founders, for a long time. I was actually a previous customer of Ledium, and since their inception, they actually started one of the largest sales agencies in their space, and then started Ledium to be a little bit different, which is more of like a founder-led boutique agency. So they're a little bit more select of the type of clients that we bring on. But since they've been in business, they've helped companies, 6 companies IPO. They've helped companies raise over $7 billion in funding, and lots of accolades to kind of back up the results that they drive.
Oh, that's great. So, any special sauce or anything that's kind of unique and different for Ledium versus, certainly it's a somewhat crowded field with a lot of people that do this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a few things. The fact that they're more of a small boutique sales agency helps deliver a better quality of service. In this business, there's kind of a threshold of when you get too big, it's a little bit more challenging to manage people and delivery expectations for clients. And then the other thing is, most people are leaning towards the direction of leveraging AI and doing offshore or nearshore talent to execute. So those are kind of some of the key big differences, where it's a fully US-based SDR team out of Las Vegas office. We definitely use AI tools for research and data and so on. But we do not use AI for any like copywriting or scripts or emails or anything like that. That's all written, by program managers that have 5, 10 years, or even, one of the co-founders that does a lot of the sequence writing.
Gotcha. Interesting. Cool. And I don't know if you can divulge, but any kind of tools in particular that you use in your kind of tech stack?
Yeah, I would say Apollo's kind of the backbone of what we do for clients. We're able to create unique environments for each of the clients. It's pretty friendly in that regard. And what we've seen is, before, you used to get a lot of conversions over email, and that's changed pretty drastically. Doesn't mean you can't be successful with email today in outbound, but it's definitely changed a lot. And so we've seen that the phone is the most powerful channel for conversions. We can get, almost immediate feedback of whether a value proposition is landing or not, whether the targeting is good or not. That's one of the benefits of the phone. But also, the phone, when you have good tech, so we use a parallel dialer that integrates directly into Apollo and sends all that data back to the CRM of the client. And the kind of the secret sauce to having really good success on the phone is also your data. So relying on one data provider isn't sufficient. We're typically using 2 or 3 different data providers to make sure that we're getting a good resolution on direct dials and mobiles before we're loading that up, into a call sequence.
Awesome. Well, we'll have to talk offline, but two sponsors with the sales community. If you know, Phone Ready Leads, they kind of help you figure out kind of who has a more likelihood of picking up, and then Modigi helps kind of consolidate a lot of the info from Apollo and Zoom Info for kind of making sure you have the right contacts. But we can talk about that offline. So getting into the title topic of how outbound sales is broken and what works today. We were talking beforehand in terms of prioritizing what converts the best for cold outreach. Cold calling is 54%, email 26%, social 20%, and then some others. So any kind of what are some of the tips and tricks or best practices around cold calling and using the phone?
Yeah, I mean, we touched on it a little bit. I would say data is big. So, having being able to identify who picks up the phone and prioritize that channel for that prospect can contribute to success on the phone. Using multiple data sources so that you're getting, a higher resolution on direct dials and mobiles. For example, if you're using just one data provider, I don't want to, single any of them out because, they all have this issue. But if you're using one data provider, you're typically going to get about 300 mobile direct dials for every 1,000 prospects. If you're using 2 or 3, you're going to increase that to 6, 7, maybe even 800 direct dials or mobiles for every 1,000 prospects. So that alone is going to have more success because you're going to have more direct dials and mobiles. And then having the right technology in place. So not just, smile and dialing or even using a click to dial or power dialer. I'm a fan of parallel dialers. They're going to, call multiple people at once. What that results in is typically anywhere from every 10 to 14 phone calls that you make, your SDR is having a conversation with one of your prospects. Now, just getting those connects and conversations isn't enough to get the conversions. So what do they do when they have them on the phone? Well, having good research that's done on those people before, whether that's what they talk about on social, where they're located, depending on who you're calling into, stuff from their 10K reports, that's all stuff that AI can help you do research. So it's key that you do your research before you load these lists up so you can have an impactful conversation once they actually pick up the phone.
Yeah. So how many, maybe kind of with your team, how many conversations would they have a day?
So our business is a little bit unique, right? Because an SDR isn't necessarily calling for one particular client. They might be calling for 2 or 3 in a day, right? And so they're doing different, those ICPs could vary. Some could be more enterprise where they're not having a lot of conversations. But when they do have conversations, those are pretty high value conversations and typically longer. But let's just say on average, if you're calling into like SMB mid-market, if you're making, say, 200 dials, then, every 10 to 14 phone calls, you're going to be having a conversation with a prospect.
Okay. So then 20, so that means 15 to 20 conversations a day.
Yeah. That would be, but that's not per day. So let's say that's, a third of a day, right? So that could be a third to a half of the day, depending on who you're calling. And then from there, you would expect to convert, a certain percentage of those. And then, in our business, they would then move on to another account. But let's just say you're operating with an in-house team and trying to run a similar motion here. If you have good data and you're using good technology like a parallel dialer, your reps could easily make 400 to 600 dials with that.
How many conversations a day give or take on average?
Yeah, I would say every 10%. So they could have 40 conversations if they put 400 dials in for the day.
Gotcha. And then if they do for the research angle, because you're there and you're just kind of call. So how can you possibly out of all of those, how can you possibly kind of do any research or getting any information? Because let's say in your case, if you're targeting the 200, 300, 400, you're not going to research that. But say if I'm cold calling, all of a sudden I get you on the phone, you have things that then automatically pop up that kind of show any of that research information?
Correct. So you would do all the research in advance before you put it in. It's the same research that you would use for writing personalized emails, that you would use to personalize the script. Another nice hack too is most of these platforms have a quick link, to either the CRM. They'll have a quick link to the sales engagement platform, and then my personal favorite, they'll have a quick link to their LinkedIn profile as well. So I'm a big fan of, you get that person on the phone, you pull up their LinkedIn profile, you're kind of, see who it is you're talking to in most cases. And then you also have any notes that you have, from the research that was done previously as well.
Okay. So my favorites, which I answer the phone just for sport, and we'll get like a Zoom info is probably one that calls probably the most, and then they have like no idea who I am or what I'm doing, and they'll go through, okay, how you doing? About what's your company? They'll talk about one of the other companies, and I'll just say, okay, I'm not really a prospect, but I recommend go check out Sales Community. It'll probably help you in your sales skills next time before you get on the phone with somebody. Here's some stuff you might want to do, right? And I always come so close from kind of doing a post on LinkedIn, but I don't want to tell whoever it is, the poor person, don't want to destroy them. So, so before we move on, any other thoughts around cold calling?
No, I think that covers a lot of the basics. Maybe some of the people tuning in might have some questions at some point.
Well, yeah. So great point. Thanks. So anybody that is watching or listening with us, feel free to chime in with any comments or any questions as well. Or if you know Collin, feel free to roast him a little. Anyway, so now next.
I'm always up for a good roasting.
There you go. All right. It's out there. All right. So with emails, certainly, again, we all get a bunch of stuff, and I always laugh. It's, kind of generic, versus personalized. So I imagine being, personalizing it is something that's crucial, right?
Absolutely. It's the only way to really win with email today. And, personalized doesn't mean, hey, some AI tool found some, icebreaker and injected it into a merge field.
Yeah, definitely. And then, so what are ways or kind of things that you recommend in terms of how to personalize?
I think social is a good one. So, there's a couple, it depends on, there's a few things, right? Number one is segmenting your data well, right? I think that's where a lot of people go wrong is they want to email too many people. Working, really refining your list and segmenting it down as much as possible is going to help you so that you can easily personalize. Also, make your messaging a little bit more relevant to that specific person. Could be maybe buyer intent data. Could be something that they talk about on social. Could be a podcast that they recently went on. It could be something you found in their 10K reports. Maybe a blog, something like that. So you're looking to segment down your list to make your messaging relevant. And then you're looking for something specific to personalize it to that individual. And those are all different places. One of my personal favorites depends on, this doesn't work for everybody. But if, who you're prospecting into, especially if it's an executive, a CRO, VP of marketing. A lot of times these people are fairly active on social. A lot of times these people go on podcasts, maybe even have a podcast. Those are great nuggets. If you just go listen to it on 2X, podcasts that they went on, you can grab some things there. Now, these aren't things that you can necessarily do at scale, but some of the most effective things that you can do are the things that you can't really do at scale. And those are the things that are going to break through the noise. Everybody's just got lots of competition in the inbox. Not to mention, the challenges of even scaling email up if you can, not get caught by the spam filters.
Totally, yeah. So that's a good point there. So what's the latest now on the spam filters? Because it seems like more and more people are leaning toward calling versus email because, if you're at, kind of whatever company, if you're doing kind of too many, too much, you kind of get put in jail, and then therefore everybody else at the company with the same domain kind of gets put in jail, right? Yep. Collin, you there? Hello. Collin?
Yep.
All right, I can hear you. Can you hear us? Collin? Cannot hear you.
I lost you there for a second.
Okay. You're back. I can hear you, can't see you, but don't worry. I see your water bottle. I think you got to turn the phone around.
1 second.
There we go. Sorry, everybody. Good question here from Bhupinder. So Bhupinder was recently a Gong. I consider him an awesome resource. So anybody needs help on their operations side, especially partnering, Bhupinder's awesome. So Bhupinder's excited because I just was able to give him a commercial. So Collin, just make sure your voice is back.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay,
definitely.
perfect.
I think there's a little bit of it. Okay, I think there's a little bit of a delay, so I'll have to make sure I pause in between. So I think we're talking about kind of the latest with kind of what's going on with the kind of spam filters.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the deliverability guru, but I think, there's a lot of things. Obviously, just the basic technical setup of your DMARC and SPF records, all of that stuff's important. I think it might be kind of obvious, but not using your primary domain for sending out, cold outreach. Those are kind of the basics. But then there's a couple other things like, not sending too many emails too fast, right? So if it's a fairly new domain and you should be warming that up, you're going to want to start sending maybe 20 emails a day, slowly scale up to, 40, then 100 plus. So those are some of the basics around deliverability. But then there's also the fact that you don't want to be sending a lot of the emails that all look exactly the same, right? So personalized emails are going to help with deliverability as well. Building up enough positive sentiment where people aren't marking you as spam over time. Those are all things that are going to help.
Awesome. Very cool. And then if you are kind of, I'll say, I call it being put in jail, but kind of spammed, how long does that take? How long are you in jail for?
Oh, I don't know. I think, once you burn a domain, I think you're better off just moving to a new one.
Yeah, but if you're a real company, if you're kind of ServiceNow or Dell, how can you, how is it possible to properly police?
Properly police as far as so you don't get put in jail or getting out of jail if you've gotten jail.
Yeah, getting out of jail, right? I mean,
yeah, I've never really gone down that path so I'm not entirely sure. I'm sure if it's your primary domain, then yeah, you've got to figure out how to build that domain reputation up again. And I've definitely talked to some folks that have ran into those types of problems. But as far as how do you get a domain back into kind of good standing that is, on some of those spam lists, I'm not entirely sure.
Well, all right. So from Bhupinder, question from cold calling to lead generation management. Are there any tools or systems that you use or recommend? You touched on a little bit before, but maybe anything else?
Yeah, I mean, Apollo, Nooks. There's a ton of them out there. Randy, you may even have some suggestions of some of the revenue teams that you speak with regularly, what they're using.
Yeah, definitely. I think first is making sure that you got the right kind of operational process. So good tee up for converters. So a lot of times, especially these large companies, you would think getting a lead in, that it would kind of go through smoothly, but really making sure that you have a good kind of handoff within the system. So when the lead comes in, which could be a lot of different ways, that then sales is on it and the ball doesn't get dropped. I'll say, say between kind of sales and marketing, And then I mentioned already a little bit before with Modigi and the phone ready leads. And a lot of it too is just making sure you're properly trained, which kind of a Sandler Octus can as well. And with from a coaching side, take a gong, kind of just the call recording, getting feedback, and kind of what things are and kind of how it goes. So those are a few, and I'm sure I'm forgetting some other ones. So, Bhupinder, thanks so much for that. So, just kind of wrapping up here on emails. So, it may sound goofy, but kind of subject line as well, I assume, makes an impact.
Yeah, I'm a fan of short subject lines, like 1, 2, 3 words at the most.
But doesn't that, like, say if it's for Gong, if I'm saying, okay, Gong helping ServiceNow sell more. So in your definition, that would be kind of too long, right?
Yeah, I would prefer just sell more, right? And sort of like try to catch their attention. The point of the subject line is to get them to read the email, right? So you want to intrigue them to just open the email. Sometimes if you put a little too much in there, then you've sort of given them too much where they may feel that not necessarily intrigued enough to open the email. Right. Each line of your email is to get them to read the next line. Right.
Yep. Got it. And then kind of from a messaging, I'm, kind of big on kind of as an example, kind of what's the value, right? So you should have things that are impactful. So, if you're with the CFO and I say, if you're in the elevator and you got 15 seconds, kind of what are you going to say? It's not a bunch of technical mumbo jumbo. It's how you're going to help generate revenue, kind of save money, get a competitive advantage. What's your thoughts on that and other messaging aspects?
Yeah, I totally agree. As long as it's not coming off as too pitchy, right? You can pose a question that aligns with some goals that you think that they might have. You can, mention a few things that you are hearing from other CROs, sales leaders, and ask them if it's relevant or not. And then, to kind of wrap it up, I think where a lot of people go wrong is you want to have more of a soft call to action, right? Where, hey, Randy, is this something that's relevant to you? Or are you interested in learning more? Or does this sound like it's worth a chat? You don't want to ask for the meeting. You don't want to send a calendar link, any of those kind of things where, that I still see people surprisingly do today, which is super ineffective. And also helps, if you're dropping links in there, that's also going to hurt with deliverability as well.
Gotcha. So if I debate you a little bit, and it's fine if we disagree. If it's something that they're going to be have interest in, and say, would love to set up a meeting with you. Here's my calendar. Feel free to pick time here. Doesn't that, if the person's interested on the other side, doesn't that help to avoid kind of some additional back and forth, or no?
It does, but sending a link will definitely hurt deliverability. And, I think part of it is that first, somebody with you, like you, where you're very busy, you want to be super efficient, that approach may be a better approach. But, person to person and making sure that your email even gets read is kind of more of a priority than it getting caught in spam. Because if you're sending that link across, there's a lot of people that are just never even going to get the chance to even read that email.
Gotcha. And it may be a little different too. So say when I'm doing kind of outreach on behalf of sponsors or clients, they already either know me or know of me. So that would kind of, I'd say, increase the likelihood of being positive as opposed to it being pure cold, pure cold of them not knowing me or knowing the company or anything like that. So that's probably a difference as well.
Yeah. And if it's like a one-off email and it's a warm intro or referral, something like that, and you're trying to be efficient, by all means, no problem with that. But more like cold outbound at scale, in a sequence, you want to avoid some of that stuff.
Gotcha. Okay. And as I said before, if there's any other questions or comments, anybody watching or listening along, feel free to chime in. And what about, we're on a podcast now. So what are your thoughts on leveraging podcasts?
Yeah, I think podcasts are a great way to be different and stand out, right? Maybe there's a CRO that you're, trying to build a relationship with. quick, easy way to do that is maybe get them booked on a podcast. Maybe you build a network of folks that have sales revenue podcasts. And you can, basically say, hey, I think Randy would be great on your podcast, right? That's a great way to build a relationship with a CRO. Another way you could leverage podcasting is having your own podcast, inviting people on that you want to build relationships with. It's a strategy I've used in the past and have driven lots of revenue doing that. Another hack, if you're like, those seem a little bit too difficult, is you can go to a site like Listen Notes or Podchaser. You can search your prospect's name, see if they've appeared on any podcasts. And then that's an easy way to reach out to them and say, hey, Randy, I heard you on this particular podcast. Really love this, thing that you were talking about there. Maybe give some of your perspective on it. And from there, that would be how you would approach your outreach and personalization with that specific person.
I'm going to write that down. So Listen Notes, and what's the other one?
Podchaser.
All right, cool. Yeah, so it's interesting for the ones that we've done. Yeah, obviously you can go to Sales Community, or you can just do, say in the case for you, Collin Mitchell, Tech Sales Insights. Then you can go see. But we've done, for those that are in the kind of sales game or selling to these tech company go-to-market executives, we've done 157 of these podcasts, and I'm amazed by. Talking to some of my friends, I said, hey, I would have thought more people would have be coming after me mentioning it. So we obviously have a good following, but you think people should be doing that even more,
or even just listening to the episodes and then reaching out to your guests and saying, hey, I heard you with Randy on the Tech Sales Insights podcast. Yeah. Really loved your perspective on this.
Yeah. Anyway, not to be critical, but again, with some of the clients I have, I'll be like, okay, well, I had John Byrne, right, who's the president of Dell on a few weeks ago. Like, okay, we're trying to sell to Dell. Probably would be a good idea for you to go do that, and probably would be a good idea for you already know that if you again are kind of doing your homework. But anyway, and what about video, personalized video? I get some of those. I think those are kind of cool.
Yeah, video and email is great. Again, you're sending a link there, so don't recommend it in like your first touch. But let's say you get a response, you get a reply. Replying with a video is a great way to start to build rapport and trust with that particular prospect. I'm a big fan of using video across social. So if you send a connection request to somebody, they accept that connection request. The first interaction would be you sending them a video. These videos don't need to be long. They don't need to be a long sales pitch. You're taking that same, formula of adding value, being relevant, personalizing it, and really trying to, condense it into like 30, 45 seconds. That's how video is most effective.
I'll get some on LinkedIn, and I'm not obviously getting enough of them. So I'll, kind of click on, and you can kind of tell which ones are kind of really genuine, customized, or they're just generic. But to your point before, personalizing, you think, okay, and again, I could be wacky because I actually look and pay attention to these things and answer and whatnot. But, if you can take the time, if somebody's going to take the time to personalize anything based on me for video and ask for a quick call, I'll be like, yeah, I'll do that. So are there tricks, I would imagine, similar to how you're personalizing email to how you personalize video, or are there differences there?
I think the general framework is pretty much the same, but there's a few things that you want to do. This is not a good example. I was technically challenged today, so I'm joining this from my phone. But I think number one, if you're going to be doing videos, make sure you have a good setup. Make sure you have a good mic setup. Don't make sure you don't have your dirty laundry in the background when you're sending these videos. And make sure you're smiling, you're making good eye contact with the camera. Another little thing that people don't necessarily think about is when you're using these video tools, doesn't matter which one it is, there's a big play button in the center of the video. And so you want to make sure when you are starting out your video, you kind of stand out of frame so they actually can see your face and not just a big play button on your face. So those are small little details that can add up to larger conversions of your videos actually getting clicked through and then actually converting to meetings and conversations with your prospects.
Gotcha. But it is crazy. You think about it, we had some of the technical challenges with your computer, but yeah, you're on a phone now, and who would have thought pre-COVID, right? You'd be doing a podcast on a phone.
I know. It wasn't my preference, but my Mac was not cooperating today, and I'm glad we were able to make it happen, even though it wasn't the most ideal tech setup.
Yeah, it worked out great. Any other best practices to be successful with Outbound?
I think integrating social is important. Couple tips on social. Just don't do what everybody else is doing, right? Connect and pitch with these long messages and a calendar link. We see it all day. It's ridiculous. The main way to win with leveraging social, like a platform like LinkedIn, is you're, building relationships. You're trying to get conversations started. You're nurturing these. Don't be the guy or gal that connects with somebody and then 5 seconds later sends a 3-paragraph pitch with a calendar link. Same philosophy and framework here of, be personalized, be relevant, add value, soft call to actions. Those are really, how you're going to win with social. If you're doing any sort of outreach on social, posting content regularly is going to help. You appear as an authority in your space, you posting stuff that's relevant to the people that you're connecting and building your network around as well.
Or at least perception's reality, right?
Yeah.
They think and I saw there's a recent program called LinkedIn Top Voice. I got it as well, but actually I don't know anything about it, and I saw you post it. So maybe tell us about that.
Yeah, I've been posting regularly on this platform. For probably 4 years. I've been on the platform for a while, got really active about 4 years ago. Sometimes I get frustrated with the LinkedIn platform, to be honest. I don't know that the Top Voice gives me any extra juice on the platform or anything like that. But there is a lot of, awesome people like yourself that have got, into this program. They basically told us we get, a lot of the new features and functionality Top Voices will get first. We get kind of some insider information from the community, the LinkedIn community folks. And that's about all I know about it so far.
All right, cool. One of my pet peeves when you do the LinkedIn Lives, they have a max of 1,000 invites that you can do per week.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't tell all for who's invited. All it does is it shows you like 40. So you have no idea how many you're at in doing these invites. But anyway, that's old news. What about kind of going through your career here? Any one or two mentors in particular that have had an effect on you and advice that you've received?
I haven't had a ton of mentors, but I could tell you, from that first sales job that I had, I learned a lot of bad habits in selling that I had to unlearn. I was your typical, very aggressive commission breath salesperson. And there's been people that I've followed, books that I've read, podcasts and such, where, I learned a different way of selling that's, been very beneficial.
Awesome. What about advice to your younger self?
Advice to my younger self. That's always an interesting question. I would say it's okay to be patient. I still struggle with patience, when as far as in business.
Yep, totally. And then AI always comes up. You touched on it a little bit before. Anything else that you're doing or leveraging on the AI front?
I think that, what was kind of last year, you're seeing a lot of AI products being launched, right? Some gimmicky, some good, some not. But I think what's, getting more interesting is you're starting to see, chief AI roles and companies really trying to figure out how to roll it out to their, to their employees. And so I think that's what's going to really continue this year is more people figuring out how to enable an AI strategy, within their revenue org.
Gotcha. And any pet peeve? I've mentioned some of my pet peeves. Any pet peeves that you have relative to just kind of sales in general these days?
I think the one that you mentioned, I'm also somebody who picks up my phone pretty much always if I'm not in a meeting. And it's when people call and literally have no idea who they're talking to, why they're calling me. It's just lazy. And, it's like really pointless to be making cold calls just for the sake of getting an activity. I think the general rule of thumb here is with outbound, like less is more. People often think like, we need to make more calls, and you really just need to make the right calls and do it in a more effective way.
Yeah, but so on the one hand, I feel bad for those individuals because they just have crappy coaching, right? So their leadership and the coach. So there's somebody that has this metric of, okay, it's all about the number of dials and all about number of pickups. But then to your point, they're not worried about the quality of it. So, from a leadership perspective, that's really where it's flawed, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it starts with the top.
Crazy. And then what about within kind of SDR organizations or BDR organizations these days? Any things in particular where you think they're kind of flawed or could do different or better?
I think that we're seeing a lot of those teams smaller than they used to be. And we're also starting to see kind of the comeback of the full cycle rep and, AEs having a certain quota of self-sourcing their own deals as well, which I think is great. And I think that's a shift that we're all seeing across the board.
Yeah, totally. All right. So you've been awesome. Really appreciate it. Any closing remarks?
No, thanks for having me on. I'm glad we were able to make it happen, even with the technical challenges that we had. We really made Tucker work hard today before we hopped on here. But glad we were able to figure it out, and appreciate you bringing me on the show.
Awesome. And next week we had to do a little swap with Muhammad Ali. He's the chief operating officer at IBM Consulting. He's got a small team of, I think, about 160,000. Great longtime tech exec. His title topic is going to be how generative AI is disrupting the IT consulting industry as we know it. So that's February 15th. February 20th, you may know Richard Harris, who was, I love his content. He's got a new book hot off the press called The Seller's Journey that we're going to be talking about. And then February 28th, Peter Trezino, who's a president at Dell, runs the Americas and North America region. His title topic is going to be Culture Eats Strategy for Lunch. So, and a lot of other great speakers lined up. If you want, you can go and see. Embarrassingly enough, we're booked up now every week for over the next 6 years. So who knows what I'm going to be doing six years from now. But for those that are members of the sales community, thanks. Tucker's got the link up there. And for Converters sponsoring this, thank you so much. And Collin, when we cut off here, if you can stay on and we can do a quick recap. Everybody have a great week. Thanks. Happy selling.